Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in to the New Fashion Conservatives podcast. I'm your host, Justin Phillips, and with me, as always, the one and only, the greatest, Shadow Governor Voss.
Robin Voss's strongest soldier.
And for those who are joining us maybe the first time, second time, we are just two fellas that want to spread the conservative message, talk about Wisconsin politics to each and every one of you. You know, we're people with a long time in Wisconsin politics. I've been doing campaign work since 2008 and done several campaigns for county executive, state senate, state assembly, and all that. And Shadow Governor Voss.
I'm just a guy with no experience, no foreknowledge. I know nothing, and you don't need to know who I am. But if you do, let's keep that to ourselves.
And let him drop his bomb takes.
Yeah. You know who you are. Just keep it to yourself. No problems. But yeah, thank you for the new listeners. I think we've had a great couple weeks here. We're now in our third month now because we started right at the beginning of June. And now we're on our third month. What episode is this now?
Episode 13, I believe. We're having a great time doing this. I am truly having a lot of fun.
Yeah, no, it is a lot of fun.
And I hope the listeners are too. And if you are, make sure to like, subscribe, share, drop us that 5-star review, like, whatever you got to do. It really helps us out. And with that, we're going to get into our show tonight. We got a long show. We're talking about a lot of stuff going on with the governor's race. A lot of takes there. We're going to be talking a little bit about what the state Dems are doing, and certainly not actually doing it in the state. And we've even got a little bit of candy for you, too. So we're going to have some fun. But the first thing I want to talk about is something I only want to talk about once. I don't want to talk about this guy again. And that's the fact that Tommy Thompson, former governor of Wisconsin, who has not been governor of the state in 25 years, went on Wisconsin 620 WTMJ and said he was thinking about running for governor. And, there's a big difference between the way Scott Walker kind of jokingly teased the coincidence between him being governor 45 and Trump being president 45 and came back as president 47, and how Governor Walker could come back as governor 47. But that didn't seem to be the case with Tommy Thompson, and that's a little frustrating for me. Again, as someone who liked Tommy, I supported him in 2012, even though he lost the race to Senator Baldwin. We'll talk about that in a sec. But he's someone who hasn't been an elected official in the state of Wisconsin for 25 years now, and at 83 years old, he's trying to make a comeback. So.
Well, to precursor everything, this doesn't necessarily reflect on, the things that Tommy accomplished for Wisconsin, the state, for the Republicans.
Arguably the best governor in Wisconsin history, certainly the best in the Republican side.
You don't get elected
four times.
You
don't win 71 out of 72 counties at peak. He only lost Menominee County, which is, equivalent of Ronald Reagan winning everything except Minnesota.
So, that being said, why are we doing this? And we kind of called this, and to be fair, it doesn't take great political acumen to have foreseen this. Mm-hmm. So we're not going out on a limb by reporting on this or talking about it. But why are we doing this? Respectfully, please stop.
Yeah.
We have an opportunity, at least if Evers ran again, to maybe bring someone younger, a different perspective. Now, obviously, Evers is retiring. The Dems are going to get someone younger, just regardless. There's no unless Bob Wirtz is running for governor, or Jeff Smith, something like that, or 2 Democrat state senators, which they're not. It doesn't seem like, obviously. That being said, they're going to run someone younger. Tommy had 12 years on Evers. Or roughly. So it boggles my mind, and I understand Tommy wants to serve. He still wants to be useful, which I still think he can be useful. But as the governor, my guy, you were governor. You won 4 times. You were governor more than anyone else ever has been. I don't know what else you are trying to offer. I don't know what lane he would be in. And I don't want to necessarily waste a lot of time on it because I think people kind of get. It's pretty clear cut and dry. Tommy, he's just a little too old. He's done this before. He's done it again now. And I just don't want it to become embarrassing. And then it like impinges on his like legacy and stuff.
Yeah.
Where it's like, oh, he just didn't know when to quit.
Well, I feel like he already did that when he ran in 2012. And, I said this earlier in the week, let's all remember that the reason we have Senator Tammy Baldwin is that he and his sycophantic lackeys didn't know when to hang it up. And that's I think what really kind of upsets me about this is first off, he went on 620 WTMJ, which hasn't been a conservative station in 5 years now. They've made a sharp turn to the left, but he still went on there because, again, didn't think to go on WISN. But he's either still that egotistical, and I hope that's not the case, or there are so many hangers-on left over from his era that are trying to make a buck off his legacy. I mean, there is a clique of like never Trump rhinos from across the state and equally old consultants and lobbyists maybe that attempted to run for governor last cycle that are trying to maintain this delusion that Tommy could be governor and frankly, like what it was for Joe Biden when they trotted him out on stage in that debate against Trump, trying to get Tommy to run for governor is tantamount to elder abuse.
And honestly, I think a lot of the other people, I don't know about the alternative influences on people. Why? I think Tommy just wants to do this because he feels like he still has something in the tank. And I can respect that. But I think Tommy has to also respect the moment that we are in politics. Like, it's just not the time. And it wasn't the time, 10 years ago even.
Yep.
So, like, what are we doing? Can we just put this to bed? Tommy, enjoy retirement. Enjoy being, your legacy. I mean, he still does events. He still talks. He clearly is still active.
You can still rev up a crowd.
You can still do that. There's nothing wrong with that. So, and I just don't want to get to a point where, it's almost, and then it becomes embarrassing for him. And I don't want that for him. And, I have nothing against the guy, of course, but also I really want to win the governor's race. And I just think if Tommy were to run, to be fair, I don't even know if he would win a primary.
It's tough to say. I think the electorate has changed.
The electorate has completely changed.
I was not at any point old enough to vote for Tommy Thompson as governor. I was still 5 years away from turning 18 when he left office to join the George W. Bush administration, which, again, might not resonate well with the modern conservative electorate. But we could talk about this for quite a bit of time. I don't want to.
You're right.
I hope this is the last we talk about this. And let's actually talk about some folks. Let's bop around a little bit to the Democrat side and the Republican side of folks who are actually running for governor. So, Shadow Gov, I think you wanted to talk about Kelda.
Well,
our main girl.
I have fantastic news to report. From the Cap Times, reported August 4th. Here's the headline. Madison Senator says political violence affects decision on governor run. Now, I'll spare you all the details, but I'll give you the main quote that everyone needs to listen in on. Quote, I would say I'm very likely to run. I've had so many encouraging conversations with folks all around the state, and that's been really exciting and gratifying, end quote. Mm-hmm. Congratulations. We have another entrance into the governor run.
Oh, yeah.
That's basically a soft launch, in my opinion, although it's been kind of quiet. I didn't really see anyone else pick it up, really. But very likely to run. I mean, it's not quite Crowley saying that I am making efforts to run for governor, but it's about a step down from that. So, and not that, again, not a big surprise. Not that anyone potentially listening to this podcast is surprised by that at all. But at least as a Republican who thinks that she would be beatable as a Democrat nominee, I'm very happy to see that entrance. And I would love to know who she would pick for her lieutenant governor. Obviously, she doesn't pick who she would want as her lieutenant governor. So I'm very interested to see how that goes. Yeah,
the rest of that story in the Cap Times was just a big fluff piece for her. She tries to use the recent assassination of two Minnesota lawmakers as a reason to maybe think twice about it. She doesn't mention the multiple attempts on President Trump's life, but she tries to use that. I mean, I highly doubt that she's not going to get in this race. I mean, I think it's all but certain that Kelda thinks there's a lane for her.
Well, and it's interesting to see, does she make the gun stuff like a big part of, like, a chief cornerstone? Is that, part of this? I mean, clearly, yes, she's probably a gun grabbing Democrat. I wouldn't be surprised by that. But she's obviously she can always pivot. There's plenty of time. But is she making that kind of her chief cornerstone or inspiration?
It's kind of odd that she would try to use that, because the more that came out about the assassination of those two Minnesota lawmakers, that the guy was an absolute whack job who believed that Tim Walz had ordered him to do this. I mean, it doesn't neatly fit into the Republicans are violent against Democrat box, or at all.
Yeah, well, so that's kind of there's obviously other lanes that she could duck and weave into, but I just thought it was interesting that she brought this up as one of her potential launching points. And, for all the lobbying that Democrats have done over the years for kind of gun grabbing stuff, guns is one of those kind of like red lines for even a lot of independents. So, sure, if she wants to run on that, be my guest. I just don't think it would work very well. But we would, of course, have to get out all the hunters and stuff, but that's a whole nother story. So, yeah, Kelda Roy's running for governor. Very likely. We'll obviously keep an eye on it to see if we'll see a formal announcement. It's been really quiet. We had the blistering pace, obviously, with Sarah Russell Rodriguez and Evers resigning, quote unquote.
Yep.
And now it's just been dead silent. And now we just kind of wait. Still waiting on Josh Call. That's kind of the other big shoe to drop on. Is he going to do it? Obviously, incumbent AG. He's got a lane. We'll see if he takes it. But it's been awfully quiet. So I just wanted to obviously bring that up just because that was a little bit of news.
Well, we'll talk about Sarah Russell Rodriguez just for a minute here, because I actually thought she had a pretty good week this week.
Yeah, it was a great week, actually.
Because no one talked about her.
Yep.
She did, however, get a new role, which is she is now the Aerospace, Aviation, and Defense Czar for the National Lieutenant Governors Association. So big stuff going to be coming out of her there, obviously.
Wait, that's real?
Yes,
is that real?
That's a real thing. That was in WisPolitics.
Wait, can you say it again?
She is the Aerospace, Aviation, and Defense Czar. Now, I added the word czar, but she's going to be doing that for the National Lieutenant Governors Association on an aerospace committee.
What?
Yeah.
That is, okay.
And on top of that, also in WisPolitics, she rolled out her first set of legislative leaders that are lining up behind Sarah Russell Rodriguez's bid for governor.
We got the endorsements, the heavy hitters.
The heavy hitters and endorsements. So I'm going to read these off to you, and you tell me if these people that are endorsing Sarah Russell Rodriguez would scare off any of the other potential candidates. Now, first we have Representative Joan Fitzgerald from the 46th Assembly District, Representative Maureen McCarville from the 42nd Assembly District. As someone who's worked in the building for quite a number of years now, I've been out for a little while. I don't actually recognize those names. We also have former State Senator Janice Ringhand, Representative Sylvia Ortiz Velez. We have former State Representative Gary Hebel, State Senator Bob Wirch from the 22nd Senate District, Representative Ben DeSchmidt from the 65th Assembly District, and former State Rep Beth Myers.
So,
if I'm making a list of the most influential members of the state legislature and state legislature history of the past decade, none of these people are going to get anywhere close to that list.
So it's interesting because I don't know just off the top of my head, but I'm pretty sure like half of those people are first-time Democrat legislators.
So
their first term.
So Sarah Russell Rodriguez posed for a picture with them when they signed the book and thought, oh, that's nice. She's been nice to me. I'll endorse her.
Yeah, I clearly she went to the first-time members and thought they would be impressionable and could maybe swoop them up if they didn't have the political acumen to understand that there might be other people, entering the race. So like half of, but then the Senator Bob Wirch, who obviously we mentioned earlier, a longtime legislator, old guy, been around for a long time.
He was old when I was in the building, and that was 15 years ago.
I mean, he's pretty much very quiet. He doesn't get in the news or anything. So really, I kind of a parch list of there's no heavy hitters. It's it's a list. There's nothing much that you can say other than she has some endorsements. But I think it's even more interesting. I am curious to see, as we get more people on the Democrat side to come in, where these endorsements lie. Because I understand that the Democrat Party and the Republican Party work differently when it comes to endorsements. At least in my opinion, I think the Republicans take the endorsements more to heart. That's just maybe that's me being too close to the issue. But I would be very curious to see how these Democrats split up, because although there aren't any really heavy hitters, it is kind of an eclectic group of former, current legislators. And I'd be interested to see if there's more. These are obviously a lot of first-time legislators, but what about the others? Are the others going to endorse? I mean, I'm sure a lot of Dems like to get out in front and be the one leading the charge for this person or that person, or are there going to be a lot of reserve people that kind of wait for the dust to settle? And how does that affect that dynamic? I just like all of the insider baseball that happens behind the scenes. Well, if this person endorses this person, will that hurt their potential run for leadership, or so and so?
Sure.
Which obviously those chips, those cards have not been dealt yet. So we'll keep an eye on some of those endorsements and how those things shake out. But I'm just very interested to see the dynamics of that going forward. Right now, it really doesn't tell us anything.
So there is one endorsement that Sarah Russell Rodriguez is not going to get, but nor is any other Democrat. And that's Tammy Baldwin, who has announced she's not going to endorse. Now, I find her language here a little interesting. She said, "I think these decisions are for the voters, not people in a smoke-filled back room," which, if you know anything about Canadian wildfires, currently Senator Tammy Baldwin of New York City is in a smoke-filled room in her Upper East Side condo since the wildfire smoke has spread to there. But she told Matt Smith that she isn't planning on endorsing anyone in the Democratic primary for governor and wants an open primary process. And
one thing I wanted to add was just the fact that I am not surprised by this at all. To be fair, I don't necessarily know if it's... Ron Johnson, I guess, has played some politics as the senior senator from Wisconsin, so it wouldn't totally surprise me if Tammy did as well, but I just don't think that's... I just think Tammy is extremely risk-averse, so why get involved with this? And she just won a contentious election. She's got 5 years before she ever has to face scrutiny again. So, she could if she wanted
5 years before she has to introduce a bill to allow the state of Wisconsin residents to watch the Packer game or something that she drops every...
You bring up a great point, and boy, I wish we had our podcast during the Senate election, because, that would have been great. I don't want to have to wait 5 years to talk about Tammy Baldwin again, but that Packers bill... You would think that someone that's an effective legislator over a bipartisan throwaway bill, you can't even get that done. Whatever. That's a whole nother thing. So I'm not surprised at all that Tammy's not endorsing. Very tepid. Maybe that's just not her place and she doesn't want to get involved. So I kind of get it. But yes, that would have been a very influential endorsement. I think it would be probably the most influential endorsement, other than obviously Evers, that is.
Yeah.
Speaking of Democrats, no, I'm sorry. That's below the belt. Bad week in the Republican side of things.
Yeah.
For Bill Berrien.
Yeah, so Bill Berrien had a pretty rough week this week. So it started off with being raked over the coals by Mark Belling on his podcast, where he said that Berrien's attempt to court mega Republican voters in the state was one of the greatest political con jobs in state history. And that followed up with a Dan Bice article that eventually pressed Berrien to the point where he walked back his support of Nikki Haley, which is interesting not just because he really admitted that he regretted it, but he regretted it, but hired Nikki Haley's presidential campaign manager and consultants for his race. So I think if you're trying to walk that back as a way to appeal to MAGA voters, it's kind of just a giving lip service.
Well, and then he said, for walking this back, he just said, well, Trump won. And then pressed on whether this was his only reason he regretted the Haley donations, he said, in the end, yes, Trump won. What? That's not an answer. It's a little offensive to me, which is why I think a lot of people, I don't necessarily even ascribe to the purity test on Nikki Haley. What I don't like is there's this back and forth cat and mouse on these answers where he's clearly trying to toe a very fine line to not piss off people, but he is pissing off people just by doing this. And I know we talked about this before the show, but he might actually earn some brownie points by just being honest with people and just saying,
yes,
I support Nikki. Yes, I did. I made some comments about the president regarding COVID that I did believe at the time. I think I also made a mistake. And I have learned some things since then. You're allowed to change your views. One thing that, I've sometimes struggled with is I think my views are pretty staunch for the most part, but sometimes more in the niches, you're like, do I actually believe this? Why do I believe this? And do some critical self-thought, and things change. There are people out there, good people, that made mistakes on COVID policy, and not just I'm not taking state people. I'm talking just in general, business owners that closed down their business or required certain things that they probably didn't need, and then they learned after the fact that well, maybe I didn't need to do that. Maybe I was pressured, and there was a lot of external pressures to comply and what was considered do the right thing for the interest of people. And I can understand that.
Yeah, Bill was a business owner.
Yes.
So
he could, still his. Still
right,
his.
right. But, dollars worth of free advice to Betsy Yankee and the Nikki Haley team behind Bill Berrien is that you could easily say, yeah, I supported Nikki. I thought she was different, and I thought she would be a good candidate. She lost, and Donald Trump 47's been one of the greatest presidencies in modern history. That sticks the landing with the MAGA folks.
And you don't then have to keep on rehashing this.
Yeah.
He's been, in the race for 2 months now?
Yeah.
A month and a half, 6 weeks ish. The only reason that Dan Bice is bringing up this thing is because he didn't think that the answers that he gave originally were fulfilling enough.
Right, so he has to put it to bed.
So he had to put it to bed. And this really doesn't even totally put it to bed.
No,
Trump won.
He's got to get out there and be more forceful and talk about how great Donald Trump is as the president right now.
He's going to have to do some slurping.
Yep. And, again, same thing with COVID. He could easily say that at the time there was a lot of fear-mongering, a lot of pressure by bad actors and egotistical fake doctors like Anthony Fauci, who are actually behind the COVID release. He could just say, look, at the very beginning of COVID, we were all listening to the people that were standing by President Trump. And it turns out that the decisions they were telling us to make weren't in good faith, weren't the right ones. And in hindsight, if I could do it differently, knowing what I know now, yeah. But in that first couple of weeks of COVID, first couple six months or so, everyone was on edge and didn't know what the future held, and they were making decisions based off that.
Yeah.
And he could do the same thing with ranked choice voting. He could say, yeah, I talked to the conservative grassroots. I realized that, sitting on a board with my friends, and some of them were Democrats that I maybe listened to more than I should have, tried to get me on this ranked choice thing. Turns out it's actually a pretty bad idea. Period. Done.
Yeah, and to be fair, I think he would have less time working his way out of the ranked choice voting. But at least in the primary, the Nikki Haley thing is going to be, I think, the bigger issue.
Yeah.
I mean, yes, ranked choice voting does have a special heart or a special place in the heart of conservative talk radio and bashing that. But this kind of whole flip-flopping on Nikki Haley stuff, and again, we talked about this as well previously off air, was that showing some degree of humbleness would be, it shows you're human and not just some political construct. And Dan Bice in the article, he quoted Berrien on a line. I can't remember the exact line, but he said, well, it sounds like something cut out of an ad. Yeah. Just a consultant talking point. And yes, consultant talking points do work. There's a reason. They're, data tested, driven data on what people want to hear. That's all great. But if you don't people don't believe you're a human and just some lizard person, some social construct created by consultants for the sake of special interest, yada, 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 I'm not saying that's Bill. I'm just saying that people want someone that they can relate with, that it's genuine. And then all the talking points come along with it. So I just think that he has nothing to lose right now by just admitting he was wrong.
Right.
If you're a sitting governor already and you're at a press conference and you say, well, I did something wrong, that might get clipped and put in a bunch of ads that'll get used against you. So maybe don't do it then. But you're a candidate. You're introducing yourself. You got to win some people over. I mean, I'm not a consultant. I don't get paid to do this, so maybe I'm wrong. But I don't think he's helping his case. At all.
I actually think you're right, and maybe Bill should be paying us more than he's paying his Nikki Haley consultants, because again,
I mean, I'm not an idiot.
Show a little bit of honesty. Show a little bit of being a real person, a little humility. Admit that
you were wrong.
Exactly, and put it to bed.
Yeah.
Because if you want to talk about where he's at right now with the voters, this very scientific Republican Party of Milwaukee County.
100% accurate.
Yep.
We cannot question these results.
Nope. So they have, for the past 8 days now at the Wisconsin State Fair at their booth for the Republican Party, of holding a straw poll. And so every day they've been posting their votes, and they get a few hundred people, 150, maybe 200 people to participate every day. So the past 8 days, I've added up all the scores, or all the votes.
Drum roll.
Right now, leading the MKE GOP State Fair straw poll is Eric Hovde with 219 votes. Second, surprising second, Will Martin at 217. Josh Showman third at 165. Tom Tiffany, 141. Bill Berrien, 49. So pretty big drop off there. And he's actually closer to the next person. That's Julian Bradley with 27. Mary Felskowski, who I believe attended the state fair for the first time ever earlier this week. Maybe it was today. I saw the video today.
Yeah.
She looked like she had a great time. She was buying pull tabs. Shout out to Wisconsin Milk Cap Company. She was getting her cream puff, went down and saw some of the livestock, talked about how much she loved fluffy cows. Can relate. So she has 27, or excuse me, 22. And pulling up last, Tim Rantham with 11. So I did ask a couple people that were at the fair if Will Martin was there every day shaking hands with people. I don't think that's the case. I know he's just been we've celebrated him before for being just a conservative champion, the guy who's wearing the jersey, great team player, but it's turning into votes at the straw poll.
Well, at the very least, regardless of what Will Martin's political future is, it does show that when politicians put in the work, it does pay off. There's a reason that people campaign, and there's a reason that people go around the state and talk to the grassroots. Clearly, he's done a lot of that, and he's obviously. I'm fairly certain that. I don't know if his home base is here in Milwaukee or Racine, but he's in the Southeast, so it's not totally surprising to see that he has a lot of support within the Milwaukee GOP or just Milwaukee County, Southeast Wisconsin. Also, I mean, Hovde, again, not super surprising.
No, that's recency bias.
Yeah, it's just recency bias. We've clearly we haven't heard a whole lot about him running.
No.
There was just the one article that basically Berrien put to bed right away, where Berrien said, like, no, there's no way that him and Michaels are going to run.
Yeah.
Well, the Journal reported on it. Then Berrien said, yeah, they're not running.
And, I'm someone who's a fan of Eric Hovde. I think, again, he did some interviews with Dan O'Donnell that were outside of politics that I thought really humanized him. He's struggled with some health issues. He spends his time taking cold plunges in his
Making
lake.
libs really mad about doing that too.
So again, a guy who I hope sticks around in some form of another in Wisconsin politics. Hope he keeps the mustache.
Oh, 100%.
But let's talk about another candidate that was a potential candidate who spent some time at the state fair this week, going to some of those booths, and was asked about if he's going to run for governor, and that's Tom Tiffany.
Yeah, Tom Tiffany doing the rounds at state fair. Again, not surprising for potential candidates for governor making the rounds, which is why the Mary Felskowski going down there for the first time also keeps things very interesting. Although I don't, she obviously didn't discuss that in her video.
I think her video was so genuine. The joy you could see on her face experiencing the state fair, it was super unique and, kind of vulnerable for her for that video to be out there. And I loved it. Again, as someone who loves the fair, seeing some other people like it as much as I do was cool. But Tom Tiffany spent some time at the fair this week. I know he was I think Moms for Liberty had a booth. Republican Party obviously had the booth. And he was asked by AJ Bayatapur of CBS 58 if he was going to run for governor.
Well, Natalie Jessup, we caught up with Republican Congressman Tom Tiffany at the state fair this afternoon. For weeks, he sounded an awful lot like someone who could be eyeing the governor's office, frequently commenting on state politics. Today, he offered a timeline on when he will announce whether he's running for governor. At the Wisconsin State Fair Monday.
No, the card you chose was the Jack of Diamonds. Is that it? That's it? I mean, that's it.
A magician shows off his sleight of hand. A short distance away, Congressman Tom Tiffany is still keeping his cards close to the vest when asked if he will jump into the race for governor.
Well, we're going to make a decision here in the next 30 to 60 days. We're not going to wait till after September. By the end of September, I'll make a decision whether to run for governor or not.
What's going to tip the scale for you when you make that decision in the next 30 to 60 days?
A lot of it is going to be, do I give up a congressional seat?
Tiffany, who has served in Congress since 2020, would expand a Republican primary field that currently has two candidates, Washington County Executive Josh Schoeman and New Berlin business owner Bill Berrien. At the state fair, the Milwaukee County GOP conducts a straw poll. It features both declared candidates as well as 6 other options, including Tiffany. So far, the frontrunner is Eric Hovde, who lost a race for U.S. Senate last fall. He's closely followed by former candidate for Lieutenant Governor Will Martin, then Schoeman, followed by Tiffany. After that, it's a big drop-off to Berrien. Hilario De Leon, chairman of the Milwaukee County GOP, says he does not want the Republican races to get crowded.
I think it'd be better if the primary field was a lot smaller and, of course, not bloody. What happened in 2022 was a very nasty primary, and we had a lot of candidates running at many different positions.
On the Democratic side, there are also 2 declared candidates for governor at this point, Lieutenant Governor Sarah Rodriguez and Milwaukee County Executive David Crowley, who says he intends to get in the race in the coming weeks. Similarly, there are others who are considering a run, including Attorney General Josh Kaul and State Senator Kelda Roys. The primary election.
So Tiffany's saying he's got 60 to 90 days or 30 to 60 days to make that decision. He's got plenty of time if he wants to jump in.
He does have some time. I do think it's a little interesting that he said August originally in July, and now we're in August, and now he's saying September. So I don't know if, at least that signals to me that there's something time.
Yeah, I think
there's something time dependent, and he's pushing that off to make room for that.
He's got to get a couple more ducks in a row or something.
Yeah, he's got to get a few more ducks in a row, and there's obviously some decisions that probably have to be made and some shoes to drop for that to happen. And obviously I'm not, privy to the campaign. So I don't necessarily know what's going on behind there or if something's going on behind there, but I would hope that, again, he could push it off even till later, but I would have to think that September would be a good time for him to get in. And if he would want to clear the field, obviously earlier than later, unless you're Tim Michaels and you have $10 million to drop on a primary to win. That's a whole nother thing.
To win the primary and $0 to drop in a general. He actually brought up something that we haven't talked about, but we've been talking about Tom Tiffany as if he's a presumptive candidate, but he brings up the fact that he's a member of Congress in a relatively safe seat, and it's nice work if you want to keep it. Now, if I was a member of Congress, the only reason I'd want to actually be in Congress is to play in the congressional baseball game. I wouldn't want to spend that much time in Washington, D.C., but,
what's the incentive? I mean, I don't know how many bills people actually get done.
Yeah.
And it just, to me, I'm sure that there's a lot of things that I don't know, and there's probably good reasons. I'm sure it's a good gig, a lot of travel, you put up with a lot of stuff, but that is something to consider where a lot of these state senators, they get a free shot.
Right, and that's the thing is if you're a member of Congress, at no point do you get a free shot at a different office. You are always up at the same time as any senator that you might want to challenge or governor's office you want to run for. So for him, it's up or out. There's no free pass. And at some point you got to think, well, is this, what do you like more? What is easier or better? And what would you rather do? And I hope, I think Josh Schoeman, I've already said, has been a great candidate. We've talked about how Bill Berrien can fix his campaign in a few steps. But I think Tom Tiffany still would be the strongest Republican right now.
Yeah, I mean, even the straw poll, he's got 140, 150, and he hasn't even, there's been no announcement. So I think he'd be extremely strong and probably would consolidate a lot of the Hovde crowd vote that they're just choosing him because he's...
Yeah, it is recency bias.
Yeah, so I think that could change pretty quickly, and it probably will change pretty quickly if he does get into the race. But obviously he has a strong amount of base support, but it just comes down to the man in the arena here and whether he makes a decision or not and when he makes a decision. So, again, we'll closely follow it. I guess we'll just wait till September for that. So,
Well, he's pushing it off just 30 to 60 days. It's not like Grand Theft Auto that gets pushed off 6 months every other month. So, he's still plenty of time to make that decision.
No, you're right. So, one other thing I did want to just briefly talk about, just as a piggyback, just a little blip here, that during that report with AJ Bayat-Pour, he also asked Tom Tiffany if he wanted to cut all federal funding to Dane County over its ICE detainer policy, citing a recent crash where a woman in the county illegally killed 2 teens. It was her second OWI. So I have that short. It's a short clip here as well.
If Dane County was reporting people when they committed crimes like that who are here illegally, ICE would take care of that problem.
You're talking about the original DUI offense?
The original DUI offense. But they've declared them a sanctuary county, which means that they're not going to report people to ICE. They've made Dane County less safe as a result of it.
And when you say all funding, not just related to any one specific entity, not related to law enforcement, any source of federal funding you want pulled?
Yeah, I believe all federal funding should be removed. Their policies are a threat to human life. There should be severe consequences for that.
Not really going out on a limb here by saying extremely based, first of all, of Congressman Tiffany's statement there, just saying this obviously harkens back to last week's conversation where we talked about the 2 teens that lost their lives to an illegal immigrant who decided to get behind the wheel for the second time, drunk, and killed 2 people. And he basically said what any Republican primary voter would probably agree with, saying, yes, we should pull funding from sanctuary cities, especially federal funding. And obviously Dane County is the one who's in the news because of this situation. But although Milwaukee County isn't, I don't think, a declared sanctuary city, they don't honor the ICE detainers from what I've just generally seen. So Milwaukee is also on this list, but Dane County obviously being, I think, more egregious just because of the utter hackery that goes on. Like Sheriff Calvin Barnett. I mean, just not a great sheriff. Not a great sheriff.
No, we talked about that at length last week, and I gave my spicy takes on that one. But
yeah, so I just want just quick blurb, very based. Sounds like something every Republican primary voter would probably agree with. So I just wanted to throw that in there as well with the reporting that we just talked about.
Just briefly talk about some reporting. I think that came out of the Center Square. We're up to 13 counties that have formal agreements with federal immigration and customs enforcement agencies that expand enforcement responsibilities to local and state law enforcement. So Dane County is something of an island right now, while other counties are moving towards working with immigrations and customs enforcement.
And I believe the article talked about how it's formalizing the agreement on stuff that they were kind of already doing. So I don't know if it necessarily expands some of the stuff that they were doing, but it certainly creates a more formal relationship between the federal government and county government to then handle these people. So overall, I think a good thing that counties are participating with the feds, especially when it comes to illegal immigration. So
100%.
Yeah, very good to see. Yes, the liberals probably hate that, but it is what it is. They're protecting their constituents, whereas Dane County just can't break from the ideological barriers of helping or removing illegals from our country. So no, that was a good little thing as well. So now, slightly Wisconsin related, we had in Texas, we had the Democrats fleeing the state, which we've seen here in Wisconsin before.
And funny enough,
to the same state.
Yes.
Just over the border, just south of the border.
A border wall that we need to have.
Yes. Similar to Texas having a border wall between Texas and Mexico, Wisconsin also needs a border wall around Illinois, probably for the sake of the entire Midwest. But yes, the Democrats in Texas, they're fleeing to Illinois. They're going to overstay their visa, and they're probably going to stay there until they're deported back to Texas, which the FBI apparently is looking into doing that. So
I think we're going to see some Texas Rangers on horseback
with handcuffs,
saddling up, roping and hog tying some Senate some Democrats in Texas to get them back to take some votes.
Yeah. So.
But there is a Wisconsin element to this story.
Yes, of course. So it wouldn't be Democrats fleeing their job to from a gerrymandered state in quotes to a non-gerrymandered state, also in quotations. So the Texas Democrats fled to Illinois, and some Wisconsin Democrats went to console them or join them in solidarity. Because what better way of using taxpayer dollars than to go visit Democrats in their hackery? So a group of Wisconsin legislators actually visited them in Illinois, and they posted a couple cute pictures of themselves, holding up a fist with the Democrats from Texas and, hanging signs. Texas is first, your state is next. I mean, just...
Yeah, they actually...
the same gobbledygook.
They went from Illinois to Massachusetts, though, too. They were at the Massachusetts State House to stand with Texas Democrats. So the Democrats are being shuttled like an underground railroad to gerrymandered state, and blaming this all on Donald Trump. Now, of course, for those who don't follow this super closely, what Texas is doing is they are considering redrawing their congressional maps at the midpoint in a way that Democrats have been doing across the country for years. So the Texas Democrats and Democrats across the country are really just upset that Republicans have finally decided to play by the rules of the game that the Democrats create.
Yep, 100%. Using the rules that they created, they're just they're playing the game, and the Democrats hate that they actually have started playing that game.
You look at these states like Illinois that had, I think it was high as 43, 44, maybe even 47% vote for Donald Trump in the past election, but only having 3 of the 13 congressional districts, because you have these ones that, even Stephen Colbert joked when he had J.B. Pritzker on earlier that one of them looks like a scorpion's tail. Mm-hmm. Like, these things are drawn in such a way to so favor Democrats. And so Wisconsin Democrats joining them in Massachusetts, they go to another state that has been so grossly gerrymandered that it has not had a Republican representative since 1997.
Well, there you go. So, and obviously we would like to give a shout out to them. So we have, now I think I did some research, so I think I have the names correct here. Mm-hmm. We have Representative Karen Kirsch, Lisa Subeck,
she's hard to miss,
Jody Emerson, Representative Saquana Taylor, Representative Clint Anderson, Representative Udell, and then Representative Maureen McCarville. Thank you for wearing the shirt with your name on it. And then State Senator Melissa Radcliffe. So a very eclectic group of legislators that, and it looks like they are doing it on official. I wonder, I'd be very curious to see if they got reimbursed for this little trip, because they're wearing, some of them are wearing like official.
Yeah, I'm seeing
stuff.
that.
So I wonder if they got reimbursed for that.
I see 2 official shirts and at least one of the representatives wearing their official state floor pin. So hopefully the Speaker's office looks into this and doesn't reimburse them for these shenanigans. And again, it just shows the stupidity and hypocrisy also of the left right now, to go to a state that not only does Massachusetts not have a Republican congressional district, it doesn't even touch a Republican congressional district. That's how gerrymandered the state is. And again, the Democrats are upset because they're going to accuse the Republicans of doing this to shore up their majority in the House of Representatives for the next election. But the reality is that the Dems have drawn their states in such a way that they can't actually squeeze any more juice out of the redrawing stone.
They've been squeezing the juice out for years, as far as, squeezing out every Republican they possibly can.
And this comes down to a census question as well. And again, panic on the left. So I looked this up. Not only is Massachusetts one of the most egregiously gerrymandered states, it's also one of the most egregiously overcounted states in the last census. So Hawaii was overcounted by 6.8%. Delaware was by 5.5%, Rhode Island by 5%, Minnesota by 3.8%, New York by 3.4%, Utah by 2.59%, and Massachusetts by 2.25% overestimated in their population.
Interesting.
So the fear now is because Democrat states are going to lose so much population in the next census and have already drawn themselves the maximum number of left-leaning congressional districts, and Republican states, traditionally red states, are going to add so many congressional seats and add so much to their electoral count that the uphill battle for a Democrat to win the White House by 2032 would be more difficult than a Republican in the last 20 years. There's always the saying about how can a Republican pick the lock to win the presidential race. Now we're going to be asking that about Democrats, because the way the estimations are going, and I believe there was actually a member of Congress that is asking for a snap census. Now I'm not sure if that's constitutional, because the Constitution says they shall have a census every 10 years. Doesn't necessarily, again, not a constitutional scholar to know if it's legal to do one in between because of the overcounting of both blue states and illegal immigrants, which is a whole nother thing. Mm-hmm. But between those two things, again, the adding of the congressional seats to traditionally red states means that the Democrats are going to be the ones that are struggling to pick the lock. I mean, the next Republican in 2032 won't need to win Wisconsin, Michigan, or Pennsylvania, and will still have an easy path to the presidency if they can win Arizona and traditionally red states, North Carolina, and Georgia.
Well, and I understand this isn't really Wisconsin based, and I don't necessarily have a huge knowledge base, but what I do know is the battle over the census and the battle over House appropriating House seats for representation and thus the Electoral College will be extremely important over the next until the next census. The next census, and then for that coming decade. It will be extremely vital. I can't overstate that enough. I mean,
then there's
still more decade to be had, and there could be more shifts in population that we don't know about yet.
And again, not a constitutional scholar, not a lawyer, but I have heard that the Supreme Court may be taking up a case on congressional voting.
The Voting Rights Act.
Yes.
I believe it's Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act, with specifically talks about race-based districts and basically the proliferation of race-based districts in the Deep South. So Alabama, Mississippi, Louisiana, Georgia, and essentially if the VRA, if they would strip that down, they would lose some of those seats.
Yep. So I think really what this comes down to is hit dogs holler, and Democrats are in an absolute panic right now because Republicans are finally using the rules that the Democrats created, and they're scared.
And so logically, Wisconsin state legislators, which are completely removed from this scenario, logically go to Massachusetts to celebrate with Texas Democrats. I mean, boy, it seems a bit odd, but because that's not happening here in Wisconsin. That's just redistricting. Obviously, the Supreme Court of Wisconsin shot down that challenge by Democrats to redistrict the congressional districts, which we still have to have a legal episode.
Let's not. Yeah, we're going to need that legal episode, and we're going to need some constitutional scholars.
We're going to need that too, but we're not running out of content. That's the problem.
Yeah.
Also, it's like I'm kind of waiting for a lull, and then we
never get a lull.
But there hasn't been any major lulls.
Again, this week I thought, man, I don't know what we're going to talk about, and I had a few things in the show doc, and then Shadow Gov comes in and drops in some amazing content. So credit to him this week. He's doing a fantastic job with that. So we should be talking about some state issues that are going on right now. So we had another round of Friday vetoes from Governor Evers, including one that would give benefits to people who drive for Uber or Instacart, DoorDash, what have you. So Evers, instead of providing workers with benefits in those fields, sided with unions. And it's ironic that, as a lame duck governor, he still feels like he has to kowtow to union bosses and do whatever they say. And so this comes from Megan Novak, who's at AFP, listed some of the folks who would benefit from this bill and who spoke in favor of this bill that Alex Dahlman authored for providing, again, gig workers with portable benefits, people from Uber, Instacart, DoorDash.
Which is a growing amount of people that are taking advantage of the convenience factor of, hey, I can find really easy employment doing this for the side, kind of a side hustle. Some people do it full time.
Yeah.
I mean, I would love to know the viability of that, but that's not for me to decide. And if people want to do that, that's on them. But, I did think it was interesting. So Representative Alex Dahlman, who is representative for the Wisconsin's 39th Assembly District, he was the Assembly
Julian Bradley,
author.
Senate author.
And he posted the actual Governor Tony Evers veto message. And so he also posted a short thing online where he said, unfortunate that Governor Evers chose to veto this significant and meaningful legislation for tens of thousands of gig workers across Wisconsin. Now, in his message, Tony Evers' veto message, he said, and this was highlighted by Representative Dahlman, as this bill was under consideration by the legislature and was moving through the legislative process, my administration asked both stakeholders and legislators to ensure adequate time for that robust dialogue and engagement to reach consensus and compromise. Unfortunately, the legislature just declined to meaningfully provide that opportunity, choosing instead to send this bill to my desk anyway. So that would assume that, well, this is half-baked. This is not done. You just rammed something through. Alex Dahlman then fired back, said, and by the way, I don't know who he or his staff talked to, but they never once reached out to the lead author, my office. Can Democrats ever be honest? So no, that, a little tit for tat here.
That paragraph was word salad to say the unions told me to vote to veto this. I'm doing that. And yeah, I mean, as someone who worked in the legislature when Tony and in economic development when Tony Evers was in office, his legislative liaisons or legislative staff are, do-nothings who just rely on whatever the minority party tells them to believe and don't work with the Republicans at all. And I mean, it's Tony Evers. He's asleep at his desk most of the time, and so are his staff.
Yeah, so certainly interesting, but I did want to just pull up. We talked a little bit about the bill being for kind of gig workers, delivery and network couriers, and transportation network drivers, and providing them, insurance coverage, modifying, some rules to allow for this. And essentially, the unions didn't like this because individual contractors or DoorDashers, Instacart people, it's a growing list of people, would be able to get benefits for themselves as an individual contractor. And the union, of course, would want this to be for a more collective bargaining where they would actually get some of this take. And so certainly it seems like the unions were a little frustrated that they weren't, this takes a cut from them.
Yep.
Or it would, and the actual individual who's actually doing the work, we get to keep more of their money and wouldn't have to give it to these union bosses. And I wanted to bring this up real quick.
Yeah, I mean, anytime you see the union against a bill, AFL-CIO being against a bill, it's because they're not going to be able to squeeze money out of people.
Yeah. And if you look, I looked up the bill number, so it was Assembly Bill 269, looking for the lobbying principles that registered in favor. So it was Americans for Prosperity, DoorDash, Greater Madison Chamber of Commerce, Maple Bear Incorporated, which I believe is Instacart, Metropolitan Milwaukee Association of Commerce, TechNet, Uber Technologies, Wisconsin Manufacturers and Commerce, Wisconsin Restaurant Association were all in support of it.
Yep.
So
I'm guessing there was one group against it, and that was the AFL-CIO.
AFL-CIO, which of course is just the union. So very unfortunate that...
That's pathetic on the behalf of Evers that as a lame duck, he still thinks he has to. And I don't necessarily know he actually knew he was vetoing this bill. I think, the other shadow governor, Maggie Gao, was telling him to do this so she could remain in good graces with the unions in case someone had the poor sense to allow her to continue working for any future Democrat administration.
But, I mean, he's a lame duck. He has no reason to really kowtow to anybody. But still, it's unfortunate. It's a loser for... the people that lobbied for this, and it's a loser for all the individual. I mean, for hundreds of people, thousands, tens of thousands of people that actually do this, and it'd be nice for them to get some honest benefits.
For someone who campaigned on putting people over politics, this is clearly opposite. And, something we talked about last week with AJ Bayatapor and Jason Calvi being good political journalists. If they were really good political journalists, they'd be asking Sarah Russell Rodriguez and any other Dem candidates if they would support the gig economy.
Well, and you want to talk about Democrats, we're working for the working class. Well, I don't know what's more working class than a lot of these probably individual contractors who just try to make some extra money, or it is their full-time gig. And, unfortunately, working for Uber doesn't always have benefits. So, healthcare, and we're talking about benefits that you need in the modern day. For it's a necessity, and for the Democrats, it's a human right. Well, everything's a human right.
Well, they're stopping people
You're stopping good, honest people
from their from their quote unquote human rights.
Yeah. So it's just hypocrisy, of course, to kowtow to the AFL-CIO. So unfortunate, but I have a feeling the bill probably won't go away, and I'm sure it'll come back up.
Yeah, I think if Representative Dahlman and Senator Bradley had this level of consensus and support, and you get DoorDash and Instacart and Uber, those are large companies. You get them all on the same side of something and get them on the same page. Like, that's a win in itself, and means that this bill should hopefully have an easier path forward in the future, especially if we have a Republican governor. So, Shadow Gov, should we get to some candy? Yes. We haven't had a whole lot of candy lately, but I just saw this story come out of the DNR, and they found a bear in a Winnie the Pooh situation. This dumb bear got his head stuck in a jar and wandered across Bayfield, Douglas, and Sawyer counties before being successfully freed by the U.S. Department of Agriculture Wildlife Services in Cable, Wisconsin. So reading from this news release from the DNR, DNR partners with USDA Wildlife Services to respond to a variety of wildlife-related agriculture and residential damage or nuisance situations, including freeing bears from getting honeypots on their head. So they first observed this bear with a plastic jar stuck on its head north central Sawyer County on Saturday, July 26th. It moved nearly 50 miles and reported multiple times across northern Sawyer County and southern Bayfield and Douglas counties. After a week of monitoring and trapping efforts, several public reports of the bear over the weekend of August 2nd and 3rd indicated it was likely to return to the area where it was first witnessed. On Saturday, August 3rd, a trained wildlife professional responded to a timely report of the bear on a private residence and was able to safely dart the bear with an immobilizing drug. Once the bear was sedated, USDA Wildlife Services staff were able to cut the jug and examine the bear for injuries. It was approximately 70-pound, 2-year-old female bear relocated to a safe wooded area. So DNR out there saving bears from being dumb.
Well, and actually doing DNR stuff, so I think it's good for them. And obviously it's a small bear, 70 pounds, but kind of a feel good story where clearly I don't know if they would have. I mean, maybe eventually, but just easy enough. And clearly, you still have to sedate the 70-pound bear. You don't want to get attacked.
The folks at the DNR did mention that the bear was likely surviving on body fat reserves, which are significant on bears in midsummer. Bear of that age and sex normally averages between 100 to 150 pounds. So hopefully that bear catches up, gets some honey that isn't in jars and other delicious snacks.
And maybe just like throw away your stuff.
Yeah.
Or I don't know, maybe they got into trash.
Is this like, growing up, we were taught to cut our 6-pack containers. So,
the cans so that the polar bears don't get caught.
Yeah. The sea turtles don't get caught in them. So now we need to start cutting our jugs.
Or cutting based off the photo, it looks like a jug from of cheese puffs.
It does.
So I guess cheese puffs, you're on the do not buy list apparently for the bears.
Right, we're gonna have to ban these like we ban plastic straws.
Well, that's the most logical reason. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, but folks, cut your jugs to save the bear. All right, so other story. Saw this one hits a little closer to home. I know there's been a lot of news lately about car thefts. There's a car theft ring going through Waukesha County right now. They're leaving Milwaukee and trying to steal cars from affluent neighborhoods in central and even western Waukesha County. It's gotten out this way. But the other thing facing vehicle owners right now is cheesing.
It is a dangerous trend. It is the most Wisconsin crime to ever crime in Wisconsin.
So from Fox 6 News, a car was vandalized with cheese and ranch, according to Franklin police.
This is a real news story.
Yes, real news story. Fairly recently, it actually, from August 6th, a Franklin mom said she lived near 29th and Ryan for 8 years and has never seen what she recently found. She did not want to speak on camera, but she has a message for parents as neighbors discuss a prank that went too far. It's just uncalled for, said one of the neighbors. Dozens of cheese slices were stuck to a Buick. The next day, more slices were discovered, this time with a side of ranch dressing. Surveillance video shows a person knocking on the door once at 10 p.m. and the next night at 11 p.m. Toilet papering houses or eggs or cars, I've seen that, but not cheese and ranch, said neighbor Kathy Vance. Family members posted on a community Facebook group saying the prank is no longer just frustrating, it's costly. The car owner's mother said the cleanup is costing her a couple $100 and she might need to get the hood of her car replaced or buffed for cheese.
Really?
So what you can do, friends, Franklin police say they are aware of and investigating the incident while looking for whoever is responsible. Whoever it is could be fined for trespassing and damage to property. So be on the lookout, not just for car theft, but for car cheesing and car ranching.
I didn't realize that. Well, first of all, it sounds like it's Kraft Singles.
Yes.
There. And it's like, I mean, yeah, I know Kraft Singles probably aren't the most all natural cheese, but like, is there something in there that's like eating the paint?
I don't, yeah.
Off of the car?
If I find out that Kraft Singles can strip the paint off of the car, I might
wonder what my insides look like.
Right.
Because regardless of what you think, those Kraft Singles when I was a kid, boy,
there's nothing better that melts on a burger than a Kraft Single.
Oh yeah,
it's just the right choice.
But they're so bad.
But now don't forget, we're going through a bit of a heat streak. I think it's high 90s projected for this weekend, so that cheese is going to melt on that car. And
the rant, like, the thing is sometimes that, I mean, I understand that toilet paper and, throwing the toilet paper on people's lawns and, it's annoying, but it doesn't really have, I mean, it dissolves. So It's usually not a big deal. But, I would like to think that if someone put cheese and ranch on my car, I'll go out the next day, I'll take the cheese off the car, and then I'll wipe up the ranch.
I mean, it's a Kraft Single. I think you can get it off with your windshield wipers.
I'm just confused on the damage part. I would love to also know the backstory, because clearly this was a prank, and they knew this was probably by. I don't know. Well, that's what I want to know is, like, was this someone that they knew, and this was just kind of like, oh, my son's friends kind of prank thing, this is too far.
Yeah, there's got to be more to the story. Like, is this an ex-boyfriend? Is he cheesing the car as an act of revenge? Was there a bad breakup or something?
Which, like, of all things, if I'm going to take getting my tires slashed or getting cheesed, I'm going to take the cheese. Yeah.
No, in where we are in western Waukesha County, it's really popular for kids, I think, to toilet paper houses. And I can't remember the full backstory. I know it's common for seniors to, toilet paper the house of freshmen. It's during homecoming week, or do what I did and my friends did to a mutual friend of ours when we were in high school, and put Vaseline jelly on the steering wheel and peanut butter under the door handles. Just do normal stuff.
Horrible.
Or wrap the car in cellophane.
Oh.
But anyways, if you are in southwestern Milwaukee County, be on the lookout for the car cheesing vandal.
Just wait till they start having to investigate, like cheese and ranch purchases at the grocery store and tie them back to crimes in Franklin, apparently.
Well, it's at least you're getting a staple product, and it's going to be hard to track that one.
Oh, there's millions of Kraft Singles sold every day in Wisconsin.
And HVR is probably one of the most sold condiments after ketchup.
There you go.
So with that, I do have a recommendation of the week, and it's a bit of a recommendation. It's a bit of a eulogy. So I grew up in Menominee Falls, and every Wisconsin town has that go-to spot for frozen custard and snacks. So, maybe it's Leon's, Leduc's, Kopp's, the Kilty, Jilly's, Georgie Porgy's, Leon's of Oshkosh, if you're a fan of former state representative Michael Schra. But my hometown of Menominee Falls had Pops, which is going to close at the end of this month after 45 years. I remember going there with my dad when I was a kid. In middle school, I played in a rec basketball league, and my team was terrible. We won one game, and during that game, I made a diving attempt to keep the basketball inbounds and slid and cracked my head on the wall. And before going to the hospital after the game, I went to Pops. and celebrated our single victory. And then I went to the hospital and then was told by the doctor I should have come to the hospital to get stitches before going to Pops. But I earned that Jiminy Cricket, which was my favorite order. It's chocolate sprinkles and mint and marshmallow. But I just had some real fond memories of that place. I walked there for lunch on half days when I was in middle school. I took dates there for bowling and after bowling and mini golf all summer from middle school to I think even when I was in college. I went there on a lunch break when I was cleaning out my mom's apartment after she passed away. It was just a great place to go. So my
institution.
Yes. And so my recommendation, not necessarily to go to Pops before it closes, but go to that frozen custard place that you love before summer winds down.
I need to do that because I haven't even fully exploited that yet. And with the heat, it's been so hot. Mm-hmm. Perfect opportunity.
So I even went to Leduc's last night. I've been to Kilty earlier this summer, so I checked those boxes. I'm going to get to Pops hopefully in the next 22 days before it shuts down for good, and I get one last Jiminy Cricket. But go there. So with that, another great episode from the New Fashion Conservatives. I'm Justin Phillips. With me as always, Shadow Governor Voss. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to our podcast on Apple, Spotify, or Amazon, wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to drop us that 5-star rating where available. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to our podcast on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, wherever you get your podcasts. Don't forget to drop us that 5-star rating where available. Show notes can be found on our Substack, newfashionconservatives.substack.com. Make sure to sign up there so you're the first to be alerted to any new content. Follow us on X at New Fashion Pod, Facebook, Rumble, and YouTube at New Fashion Conservatives. Send us memes, feedback, hate mail, whatever you've got to newfashionpod@gmail.com, or send us a text via the Spotify app found right on our page. And with that, good night.